Welcome to Dave Examines Movies and TV. Today I examine the first live-action Disney remake that people often look over and forget. It's 101 Dalmatians. Join me as I talk about one form of extreme animal cruelty and even poaching of house pets. That's freaking dark, man. Hey, I'm Dave, and I created DaveExaminesMovies.com. I've been reviewing movies for over 10 years, and I believe I've discovered the ultimate method for reviewing film. I've always used a 1 out of 100 star rating, but somehow that was still too biased and inaccurate for my taste. I wanted something so unquestionable that even if you hated something that I loved, you could appreciate my logic, and I found it. I call it Interpreting the Stars, which puts a movie into 10 categories, 5 solid categories that fit any film, and 5 specialty categories created specifically for the movie at hand. The first 5 categories are people, writing, behind the scenes, narrative arc, and overall entertainment. Each of these categories will have 5 subcategories of their own that ultimately define the star rating of the film. You'll no longer have to ask why a film's rated 76% versus 77%. You'll now know what each and every star represents. This is Dave Examines Movies and TV. Hey guys, what's up, and welcome back to Kids Week here on Dave Examines Movies and TV. We're over on the hump now, and so we're getting further and further into this Kids Week. So we first started off with Peter Pan, then we talked a little bit about some kids' TV shows to talk about some fun stuff, and now we're back into movies. And this time we're talking about 101 Dalmatians, which was, I think, the first ever live-action remake of a Disney movie, cartoon movie. I can't remember what year Hook was, but that's not a remake of Peter Pan anyways. This was the same title, same premise, same everything. It was a live-action remake, so people often say that the remakes started happening with Alice in Wonderland and all that. And I do understand where they're coming from, but they kind of forget about this one that happened years before that, 101 Dalmatians. So it has it stand up for, basically the remakes that you see nowadays. Well, I guess I'll talk about that in a bit. But first I wanted to let everyone know I am finally live again, and I guess one of the things that you're probably wondering is, how did my interview go? Because I had to pre-record the last 2 episodes because I was going to a interview. Well, the interview went okay. They showed up late, and everything's fine. It wasn't the job that I thought it was going to be, though, so I don't know how that's going to work out. Such is life, right? Such is life. Also, before I actually get into the review, I also wanted to say what's going on with Dave Examines Movies. I recently signed up for some email updates and subscription stuff like that for this band that's coming out of Minnesota called Hot Pink Makeover. I know them personally. I've met with them before they were more of a thing than they are now. They were kind of just starting out when I knew them in Minnesota, and so they know me, I know them, and they created this little jingle for me because I signed up for their email newsletter and everything, and I'll just play it for you guys now, because this will be the new outro music, which will be again playing at the end of this episode, so check it out.
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert, he is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie pick. Thanks for joining up with us, we think you're pretty slick. Thank you, Dave.
How nice. Such an honor. I have my own song. I have my own theme song. I would normally put it in the beginning as an actual theme song, but currently I'm using the music I do to explain who I am for those of you that don't know me. Anyways, that's pretty cool. But let's get into 101 Dalmatians. And first, I want to remind everybody of what this movie is about. So, based off of IMDb, it says a woman kidnaps puppies to kill them for their fur, but various animals then gang up against her and get their revenge in slapstick fashion. More or less, that's exactly right. I mean, it is what it is. It is 101 Dalmatians. IMDb rates it 5.6 out of 10. I will say right now that I did rate it higher, but the real question is how much higher? This is a movie that's like 20-some years old. 21, I guess. So how does it stack up, right? Well, let's get into it. And the first thing I talk about normally, as you well may know, is the people category. That's the first category in my rating scheme. And in the people category, there's 5 subcategories called acting, characters, casting, importance, and chemistry, all important for the people category all overall. So, let's talk about the people. Let's talk about the acting. First off, is the acting okay? At first, you might think so. The acting for Jeff Daniels, and what's her name that played the girl? Jolie Richardson? Yeah, Anita. Jolie Richardson and Jeff Daniels. They are probably the most down-to-earth, recognizable, and just realistic acting that they go along there. They set the tone for what you think the movie's going to be for the rest of the movie because they're first on scene. They are important because they meet up, they fall in love, and blah, 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 blah. Same with the dogs. They set the tone, which changes dramatically in the acting specifically. And this is all tied together for the people category. The acting quickly goes to, you got your dumb, stupid henchmen that Glenn Close as Cruella de Vil has, and then Cruella de Vil as well. Very cartoony, very animated in nature for what they're doing. I don't have a problem with her being animated, or even the henchmen, and I don't have a problem with the main, romance people, Jeff Daniels. I don't have a problem with that, but they are polar opposites of each other, and thus makes you kind of notice that. I liked them, for the most part, I liked the realistic tone and feel of the movie when it began, and I kind of felt disappointed when it kind of kept going and it turned into more of a animated feature. So because the acting's so split down the middle, I have to give it a 1 out of 2. There's just no getting around that. Next up is the characters. Well, the characters... Do you remember the movie for the characters? I can't say I really do. I mean, I remember the dogs as a whole. I remember sort of the humans that are their owners as a whole. I remember Cruella de Vil. I remember the henchmen, actually. But I don't remember what the difference is for all these characters. And if you think about it, you're talking about 100 freaking dogs, 101 dogs. And when you're watching it, you kind of notice that all of these dogs have kind of their own personality and reason for being there, but you forget it pretty fast. So I have to say for the characters, 1 out of 2 as well. Casting. The casting isn't bad at all. If you think about it, Glenn Close is a perfect Cruella de Vil. I don't know how anybody can ever play Cruella de Vil again, but as you may have heard, they're making a live-action Disney movie about Cruella de Vil in the future sometime. So we'll have to see how that goes. So she's great in it, and I don't know how you can cast better dogs for this because they are so well trained in this. So I think it's pretty clear that the casting's pretty great. 2 out of 2 stars for the casting. How about the importance? What's the role everybody plays? Well, almost everybody plays a role. The only people that don't really is Jeff Daniels and Jolie Richardson as Roger and Anita. They are there literally for no reason other than to meet up and to get the dogs together. Literally. They are so weak of characters. They literally fall in love and like get engaged the first day they meet, and then their dogs are together and they're making puppies and everything, and that's it. Their characters are stupid, and their importance are but everybody else's importance, including the dogs, are important. Each dog is unique in their own standing. They have their own skills, if you will. Cruella de Vil, she's a devil. She's a DeVille that wears Prada, if you will. Her henchmen, as stupid as they are, they have a job to do, and they differ from each other too. And I can't help but notice that most of the characters in this do have super importance. It does help that the people that aren't in it for a majority of the film. So, importance, 2 out of 2 stars. Chemistry. Do the people in this have chemistry? I would say they do, but not very much. They do and they don't. So, I liked Roger and Anita meeting up, and I thought the whole movie was going to be about that, which means I didn't remember the movie very well. They had good chemistry, but they're completely thrown in the dark. The dogs have chemistry somewhat, but it's not like you can really tell. And Cruella de Vil and her henchmen specifically are flat animated characters that don't need chemistry, so they don't really have it. So because of that, I have to give chemistry 1 out of 2 possible stars in that case. That brings the people score up to 7 out of 10. Not a terrible start, but, kind of gives you an idea of where this is headed. Alright, so let's go on to our writing score. Our writing score has, once again, 5 subcategories following along, which comes down to the dialogue, the balance of the film, the story of the film, how original it is, and how interesting it is. So, let's get started. How's the dialogue? Well, here's the interesting thing. This is a dog movie. If you remember the cartoon, the dogs, I can't really remember, but I do believe the dogs spoke to each other. In this movie, they don't. That doesn't stop them from having conversations with each other. They speak to each other rather well. You know what's going on. You can tell they're having their own conversations. Even if we don't always understand what they're getting at, you do later. And it's one of those things where it's the lack of actual vocal dialogue that helps with the dialogue category. So for this, I will have to say 2 out of 2 stars for that. It's pretty cool. Balance. Is it a balanced movie? I will be honest, and I will say I was a little confused that was going on because most of the movie was focused on these dogs, and then suddenly there are other animals that are in play, and I don't think they went about it right explaining what she was doing and why these random dogs are involved now. I think it does get a little over convoluted at times because it just wants to be fun with the dogs and being cute in times. But I was a little confused as to what was going on here and there. So take that as you will. I will say, as far as balance goes, 1 out of 2 stars. It wasn't perfectly comprehensible. So 1 out of 2 stars. How about the story? What was at the heart of it? I mean, for Disney, this shouldn't be a hard question. It's just usually the moral of the story. And I'm trying to think with this. Family? Doing the right thing? Not killing innocent animals and dogs? That's important, right? I may be looking over it, and that's totally fine if I am looking over it. But the fact that I am looking over it, I don't always. So I'm just going to say the story's 1 out of 2. It could have been better. It's really just a rescue mission movie with cute dogs, okay? 1 out of 2. Originality. I will say it's pretty original. I know they already had a 101 Dalmatians, book and movie and whatever, so it's not all that original. But as far as this is the first Disney remake in live action. It did a good job at not just doing it the easy route and having the dogs talk and basically completely copying off of the first cartoon movie. It tried very hard, okay? It tried hard to be something new, something fresh, something interesting when you're a Disney fan. And I think they actually got that. So for this, I will be nice and say 2 out of 2 stars. Is it interesting? Well, it's interesting to see a remake of a movie, from several years prior. Not only that, it's also interesting to see it again after so many years, and if it matches, that's interesting as well. But while you're watching it, I wouldn't actually say it's interesting after you start watching it, because I like the beginning, and after, I would say, the inciting incident, I was, just okay with the rest of it. So, interesting, 1 out of 2 stars there. That brings the writing score, same as the people, 7 out of 10 score, so up to 14 out of 20. How does that sound, fellers? Sounds pretty good? Sounds pretty good to me. We're up to BTS score, behind the scenes. So that comes down to, once again, 5 subcategories of visuals, directing, editing, advertisement, and the music in the movie. So let's get down to it. Alright, the visuals. I will be completely fair and honest and say the visuals weren't bad at all. There was CGI in this movie, but very, very little of it, and when they used it, they utilized it smartly, and it looked real enough. You know that these dogs aren't getting thrown around and everything that's CGI, but it looks, unique. It looks real enough, and it looks fun. And I think that's all you can really ask for this movie. And besides that, yes, there are cute dogs with spots and them howling and their puppies, and it's cute, and it's just fun to look at because of that a lot of the times too. So the action with the cute puppy dogs is fun too. 2 out of 2 visuals for 2 out of 2 possible stars for visuals. Next up, directing and editing I'm going to talk about together because it's relatively the same. You're talking about a kids movie, about a movie just following dogs around and creating a story out of it about them rescuing each other. It's not the most effective storytelling in the world. It's just effective enough for kids to laugh along with and to comprehend and enjoy. But for the most part, it's not like an Oscar-worthy thing of directing. That either with editing, I don't see anything in here that really shouts out to me as fantastic or complex or challenging. It is what it is. It's not award winning. It's just a kids movie. I don't know how else to put it to you. 1 out of 1 star for each directing and 1 out of 1 star for editing. Next, advertising. For a movie like this, the advertising comes down to the trailers, but it also comes down to your memory of what this movie even was. And I think it was as advertised as there, I advertised it to myself as it was, and it was exactly as I expected it to be, more or less. So 2 out of 2 stars for advertising. Next up, music. I could have sworn Jeff Daniels sings Cruella de Vil in this movie, and he doesn't. That's the only music that's, memorable about 100 Dalmatians, and it doesn't happen. So, to me, that's kind of a problem. Because if they had Cruella de Vil, the song, other than in the credits, I would have given this probably 2 out of 2 stars, because that's part of what makes this movie so memorable, or the story so memorable. It doesn't have that. Instead, you just have typical animated action music that kids won't even recognize, but it's there to move the story along. 1 out of 2 stars. That brings the BTS score up to, yes, you guessed it, 7 out of 10 stars. Again. So that brings it up to 21 out of 30. Moving on. Narrative arc score is next, which brings into, once again, I like to say exactly what this is all about. Narrative score is the introduction, inciting incident, and crossing of the threshold, obstacles, climax, epiphany, falling action, epiphany, climax, and falling action, sorry. And these are all important, because if you're watching a movie and you feel like something's off, it might be in the narrative arc, so that's important. So let's get into it. Let's get into the narrative arc. First of all, we have the introduction. We are introduced to Roger, Anita, Pongo, it's not Lady, is it? Whatever the lady Dalmatian is, I can't remember if that was her name or not. Pongo and the girl Dalmatian. Also, Cruella de Vil, and I think even the cruel henchman. I believe we meet every single one of them in the introduction. The inciting incident is when Cruella de Vil has the henchman steal the puppies. Why? Because she wants to have, Dalmatian coats. Like nobody else would notice what she did to Dalmatian puppies. And then the crossing of the threshold happens when the Dalmatians just run out of the house and run away from home, escaping their owners to rescue the pups. Of course, you never see the owners again until the end, which makes total sense. They just watch their animals run out of the house and they're like, oh well, maybe they'll come home someday. Oh boy. The obstacles, it's an action adventure with puppies running into a bunch of mishaps and trying to get to their, puppies and trying to get to their families and stuff like that. So yeah, there's obstacles. The climax, perfectly fine climax. It comes to a head and then you're all very satisfied of how it ends there, and you're also satisfied as when it comes to its new norm with the falling action. I know I kind of zoomed through that, and that's because each and every one of these subcategories actually got a perfect score. 2 out of 2 for introduction, 2 out of 2 for inciting incident and crossing of the threshold, 2 out of 2 for obstacles, 2 out of 2 for epiphany and climax, 2 out of 2 for falling action. Believe it or not, a lot of these reviews that I've had did not have a perfect falling narrative arc score. So I'm happy to actually give one a perfect score of 10 out of 10 possible stars. It's not super, surprising because it was in the 90s and it was a kid's movie, which for the most part in the narrative arc is completely intact. So that brings us up to 31 out of 40, right? Right. 31 out of 40. We're going up to the entertainment score, which is the hardest category for me to actually score, or actually to win my votes for. It's also the most biased and everything, but it's important, right? Because when you're watching the Oscars, they're talking about all the technical aspects behind a movie, and they completely ignore if it's an entertaining movie, and so a lot of boring movies get, Oscars. So let's talk about the entertainment. What's all in an entertainment score? If you've listened to my podcast before, you know already. That would be the rewatchability aspect. If it's fun, if you have an impulse to buy it, if you have an impulse to talk about it, and finally, if it sucks the audience in while they're watching, in general. So let's talk about it. Is there a rewatchability factor to this? I will say there sort of is, because I am rewatching this right now. However, after rewatching it this time, is there another rewatchability factor? And that's important too. I will say not entirely. No. I would say I might rewatch it again at some point in my life when I'm much older. I don't know. I can't even tell you the next time I'll watch this. I'm not, saying I'm boycotting it or anything. It's just, a movie I might watch again, but you've had that feeling before. Like, I don't know, maybe? 1 out of 2 stars for rewatchability. Next up, I want to talk about, is it fun? Well, sort of. I mean, the puppies are fun. The action is fun for kids and everything. Other than that, I can't really say much of yes or no. So 1 out of 2 stars for how fun it is. Did I have an impulse to buy it? No, not even in the slightest. If I watch it again, I watch it again, but I don't want to own it. You know what I mean? You know, kids might appreciate it, but I mean, they're going to grow out of it so quick. Do I have an impulse to talk about it with anybody? No, not even the slightest. Once again, 0 out of 2 stars for impulse to buy and impulse to talk. What about, does it suck the audience in? Maybe if you're a kid, maybe. I mean, I'll get to that later with the specialty questions, but it didn't suck me in when I was watching this. I mean, I was watching for my kid, and for Kids Week, obviously, but it didn't suck me in as an audience member, which I guess brings us into specialty questions. But first, the entertainment score as a whole, once again, like I said, it's hard to entertain me for some reason for movies. 2 out of 10 possible stars, which brings us to 31, 32, 30, 32, 33? 33 out of 50? Yeah, 33 out of 50. Alright, so let's talk about the specialty questions that I wrote before watching the movie. The first one was the question of, is it family-oriented or is it kids-oriented? Can parents enjoy watching it with their kids, or is it more kids-oriented? I would say a mix mash, but I'd say about 85 to 90% of it's mostly just for kids. There are moments here and there it's like, but nah. I don't think most parents will care to watch this movie with their kids, and they might be bored. So for that, I'll give it 5 out of 10 stars. Because you know what? Most kids' movies these days are perfectly, balanced between a family and kids, and parents can enjoy watching it with their kids. They're pretty good with that now. But with 100 Dalmatians in 1996, they didn't do so great, to be completely fair. So that tells you that. Next up, adaptation. How was this as an adaptation? I would say 5 out of 10 as well, and this is why. Because, as I said before, it kicks in with a great foundation of what this was going to be. You watch the cartoon, it's really animated, it's really cartoony, it's really fun for kids, and then you watch this, and you're like, oh man, they really made this realistic. Here's this guy who has a Dalmatian, which completely makes sense, and this other girl who has a Dalmatian too, and it makes sense that they kick it off because of that. And then the animals go off on their tangent, and then Cruella de Vil is like an animated supervillain, and then she's got her, arch nemesis, her henchmen that follow her every move, and it just turns into kind of a copy-paste of the cartoon. And I wanted Cruella de Vil to be more dark, or she had more of a realistic reason to be there, and a more realistic backstory. I wanted her to be more like that, which is what they'd probably do with today's variation of Cruella de Vil, but I guess we'll have to see in the next few years. For the adaptation, I'd say 5 out of 10 stars. I think if it was made today, the animals would probably talk, and everyone would be relatable and believable, included Cruella de Vil and her henchmen, which I already told you. Next up, how is it for kids today? Well, I give this 10 out of 10 stars. Why? Because I already told you it is probably mostly for kids, but not only that, but throughout this whole week, I'm giving these movies Liam stamps of approval. Liam is my son, and he watched all of these movies with me. And how do these movies get a Liam stamp of approval? He sits and he watches through it. He has no problem watching through movies. He really doesn't. He will watch a movie through and through, which is hard to get kids to pay attention to nowadays, but he will if he likes it. Now, he's not old enough to tell us if he likes it or not, but you can kind of tell when you're watching him watch a movie and you're trying to get his attention and he's like zoned out watching the movie. And that's how it was for 101 Dalmatians. So it was good for a kid's movie. So, 10 out of 10 stars for that. I also made a special question. I expected this to have some trained puppies, some trained doggies. I don't know why, I just kind of expected it to be there. And this movie surprised me so much about how well these dogs are trained. I couldn't even remember what the movie played out with these dogs. But the entire film is littered with dog feces. Just kidding. With dogs that are trained very well, and that kind of makes them good actor dogs too. So I'd have to say 10 out of 10 stars for this. It's actually one of the most prominent things in the movie for me. Next up, does it hold up from memory? This is where I normally ask if a movie's halfway decent. And it's kind of the same idea, but since I've already seen it, I ask, does it hold up from my memory? And I don't have much of a memory, to be completely honest, but I do have a memory of the general atmosphere of the film. And I believe that stuck with me pretty perfectly, because when I watched it again, I'm like, yeah, this is the movie that I saw before, even though I didn't really remember it all that well. 10 out of 10 stars there. Nothing wrong there. That actually brings the specialty categories total up to 40 out of 50 possible stars, which is actually the most helpful it is for this review. That brings the total score of 101 Dalmatians up to 73%. 73 out of 100 possible stars. You heard it from me. I told you what each and every star represents. And now you can, I guess, argue with me what you think. You think of the movie. So that's pretty cool. I'm glad I saw it. That's your score for 101 Dalmatians. Next week, or not next week. Tomorrow I will be reviewing, I believe, Monsters vs. Aliens, the movie that came out not too terribly long ago, a few years back, came out in 3D. I actually did review it sort of way back when, but this is going to be a fresh take on it. And we're going to see how it still works out and how my kid likes it, of course, because a few years back I didn't have my kid. Woo-wee! So look out for that tomorrow. And then on Friday I will be reviewing Mona, the movie that just came out last year, and we're going to see how that works with my kid and also with me, because I do like Disney animated films. But I wasn't sure if I'd like this one, so we'll see how that comes out on Friday. Also on Friday, I'll tell you what's going on next week, because next week's theme of movie reviews will be Wife's Choice. Wife's Choice is going to come up next week, and that's where my wife picked out a bunch of movies for me to watch, whether I wanted to see them or not. So we'll see how those are, and maybe she'll join me for the TV Tuesday. I'm not sure, because that's her pick as well for the TV shows. So it's hard to review shows that she saw and I didn't. Anyways, thank you for joining me for this review of 101 Dalmatians. You can always contact me through my Twitter, through the email, through my website, through the podcast servers. Subscribe to me, comment on my stuff, give me a thumbs up, do whatever you have to do, okay? I trust in you, all right? And then I will see you tomorrow with my review of What's It, Oh, also, find me on Track TV, woo! And I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow with Monsters vs. Aliens, and we'll see how that goes. So I'll see you guys bright and early tomorrow, or I guess more at noon. Noon. Find me at noon. Peace out, and have a good day.
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the number one critic that I go to when I need a movie pick. Thanks for joining up with us. We think you're pretty